So Kouri Richins' defense team filed the motion for a new trial finally, and if you were to guess what grounds they used to file for a new trial, what would you guess? Because I wouldn't have guessed that they would go with the judge showed extreme bias. Judge Mrazek, did we watch the same trial? All right, Kouri's defense team accused Judge Mrazek of being impatient, critical, and hostile toward the defense and only the defense. On the fourth day of trial, as an example, the court filing, Mrazek allegedly interrupted the defense on 24 separate occasions while only interrupting prosecutors 13 times. I haven't gone back and done the math. I'm betting that that's entirely true. But do we want to guess why he interrupted the defense team almost double the amount of times as the prosecution? It's because you kept talking over him. You would raise your voice and talk over him, so he had to interrupt you. The prosecution wasn't doing that. Yeah, he got a little frustrated, and I thought he kept his cool pretty darn well. Let's continue. This normally may not show bias, but the interruptions of defense were curt, cutting off statements and arguments, while interruptions of the prosecution were followed by apologies. They later go on to share an example of one of these curt cuttings off, and the example they chose to share was when Mrazek said, "Please pause." They said it wasn't what he said, it was the way in which he said, "Please pause." The nerve of him to ask them to please pause. All right, changing topics here. The court document said that Mrazek had given prosecutors guidelines to stay away from Kouri Richins' alleged financial misdeeds, but at least 2 witnesses were called to testify exclusively on Kouri Richins' business dealings, including bounced checks, false bank statements, misleading communications with lenders, mismanagement of business affairs, and sloppy accounting. Only 2 witnesses instead of the vast number they could have called. And you know why they needed at least 2 witnesses? Because the motive was money. The motive was money. This one kills me, you guys, because Mrazek tried so hard to explain the law to these lawyers. At times, Mrazek went so far as to tell the defense to put the defendant on the stand rather than allowing certain lines of questioning, the motion said, adding that Mrazek's actions gave the impression that prosecutors had his approval, but the defense warranted judicial intervention. This is what they're saying, that by not allowing the defense to go through certain lines of questioning while the prosecution's witnesses were on the stand, it showed bias toward the prosecution. Here's the issue with that reasoning. The law, is that when you cross-examine someone, it has to be within the scope of direct examination. Okay, so when the defense would try to ask questions outside of the scope of direct examination, prosecution would object, and Judge Mrazek would sustain that objection. And here they're saying that that showed bias toward the prosecution? The judge was like, if you want to go into that line of questioning, call that witness. You have that right to put on your own defense. Now is not the time. He had to explain that to them on multiple occasions with multiple witnesses, and they continued to bring it up. And here they're putting it in a motion. They want another judge to read these arguments, and they think that that judge is going to show them sympathy. That judge is going to watch clips from this trial. They're going to watch the patience that Judge Mrazek showed, and they're going to be speechless.